Chapter 34. The worst of all possible worlds. The bronze doors slowly swung open, and in strode the incinerated scythe, the room filled with gasps of shock and the squeaks of cheers as all those gathered rose to take a closer look. Is it really him? No, it can't be. It's some kind of trick. It must be an impostor. He moved down the center aisle with a gait that was not his. Looser than before, younger, and somehow he seemed slightly shorter than he had been. Yes, it's Goddard, risen from the ashes. The timing couldn't be better. The timing couldn't be worse. Entering the chamber in his wake was a familiar figure in bright green. Scythrun was alive too? Eyes now looked to the open bronze doors, expecting that Scythe, Chomsky, and Bota might also return from the dead today, but no one else entered the chamber. At the rostrum, Xenocrates blanched. What is the meaning of this?
Forgive my absence these past few conclaves, Your Excellency,
said Goddard in a voice that sounded markedly different.
but I was severely incapacitated and thus unable to attend, as Scythrun will attest to.
But your body was identified. It was burned down to the bone.
My body, yes,
Goddard said.
but Scythrun was good enough to find me a new one.
Then a flustered Scythe niche rose, clearly just as blindsided as everyone else by this turn of events.
Your Excellency, I wish to withdraw my nomination for Highblade, he said. I wish to withdraw and officially second Honorable Scythe Goddard's nomination.
More chaos erupted in the room. Angry accusations and cries of woe, but also excited laughter and bursts of joy. Not a single emotion was absent as people reacted to Goddard's return. Only Brahms seemed unsurprised, and Anastasia realized now that he wasn't the mastermind. He was the worm in the apple. He was Goddard's finger in the pie.
This is highly irregular,
sputtered Xenocrates.
No,
said Goddard.
what's irregular is that you still have not apprehended the beast who ended dear Scythe, Chomsky, and Bota, and attempted to end Scythrun and myself. Even as we speak, he runs rampant, killing Scythes left and right, while you do nothing but prepare for your ascension to the World Council.
Then Goddard turned to the Scythedom.
When I am Highblade, I will take Rowan Damisk down and make him pay for his crimes. I promise you that I will find him within a week of becoming Highblade.
The proclamation brought cheers from the room, and more than just the New Order sides roared their approval, making it clear that while Nietzsche didn't have the voice to win, Goddard just might. Somewhere behind Anastasia, Scythe Asimov summed it up best. We have just entered the worst of all possible worlds. Up above, in the administrative offices of the Scythedom, a first-term apprentice searched frantically for a coin. If he couldn't find one, he'd be reprimanded. But worse, he would be humiliated before the entire Scythedom. How fickle the world, he thought, that his life, his future, could rest on a single coin. At last he found one, tarnished green, in the back of a drawer that could have been unopened since the Mortal Age itself. The raised image was of Lincoln, a Mortal Age president of some note. There had been a Scythe Lincoln, not a founder, but close. Like Xenocrates, he was an American Highblade who had reason to be a Grandslayer, but had tired of the heavy responsibility and had self-cleaned long before the apprentice was born. How appropriate, he thought, that the copper effigy of his patron historic would play such an important role in the naming of a new Highblade. When the apprentice returned to the conclave chamber, he discovered, to his dismay, that things had changed dramatically in his absence, and he lamented that he had missed all the excitement. Xenocrates called for Scythe Curie to come down to the front of the chamber for the coin flip that would begin the debate, a debate that would be far different from the ones he had expected. Marie decided to take her time. She rose, smoothed her robe, rolled her shoulders to get a kink out of her neck. She refused to give in to the anxiety of the moment. It's the beginning of the end, she heard Scythe Sun Tzu say. There's no coming back from this, echoed Scythe Cervantes. Stop, she told them. Wailing that the sky is falling does nothing to stop it. You must defeat him, Marie, said Scythe Cervantes. You must. I intend to. She glanced at Anastasia, standing stalwart beside her. Are you ready for this? Anastasia asked. The question was laughable. How could one ever be ready to battle a ghost? Worse than a ghost, but a martyr? Yes, she told Anastasia, for what else could she say? Yes, I'm ready. Wish me luck, dear. I won't do that. And when Mary looked to Anastasia for an explanation, the girl smiled and said, Luck is for losers. You have history in your side. You have gravity. You have authority. You are the grand dame of death. And then she added, Your Excellency. Mary couldn't help but smile. This girl, whom she had not even wanted to take on in the first place, had become her greatest supporter, her truest friend. Well, in that case, Mary said, I'll knock them dead. And with that, she made her way to the front of the chamber, standing tall and proud to face the far from honorable Scythe Goddard.
In these turbulent times, our region screams for a leader who not only knows death, but embraces it, rejoices in it, prepares the world for a bright new day where we Scythes, the wisest, most enlightened humans on earth, can rise to our full potential. Under my leadership, we will sweep away the cobwebs of archaic thinking and polish our great institution to a sign that will make us the envy of all other regions. Toward that end, I resolve to terminate the quota system, clearing the way for all Mid-American Scythes to claim as many, or as few, lives as we choose. I will create a committee to reevaluate our interpretations of our beloved commandments, with an eye toward broadening the parameters and removing restrictions that have held us back. I will seek to better the lives of every Scythe and all worthy Mid-Americans everywhere, and in this way we shall make our Scythedom great once more.
From the oration of Honorable Scythe Goddard, High Blade Candidate, January 7th, Year of the Raptor. We now find ourselves at a turning point in our history, every bit as critical as the day we defeated death. Ours is a perfect world, but perfection does not linger in one place. It is a firefly, but it's very naturally elusive and unpredictable. We may have caught it in a jar, but that jar has broken, and we are in danger of shredding ourselves on its shards. The old guard, as we've been called, are not old at all. We embrace the revolutionary change envisioned by Scythe's Prometheus, Gandhi, Elizabeth, Laozi, and all the founders. It is their forward-thinking vision we must embrace, now more than ever, and live our lives by their ideals, or risk losing ourselves to the greed and corruption that so plagued mortal humankind. As Scythes, it is not what we want that matters. All that matters is what the world needs us to be. As your High Blade, I will hold us to the highest ideals, so that we can be proud of who and what we are. From the oration of Honorable Scythe Corey, High Blade Candidate, January 7th, Year of the Raptor. Chapter 35, The 7% Solution. It was decided to break with tradition and ordain the new Scythes, then test the apprentices before the vote. It would give everyone some time to digest the debate, but considering its contentious nature, it would take far longer than a few hours to truly process. Scythe Corey came down from the debate emotionally exhausted. Anastasia could tell, but Marie hid it well from everyone else. How was I? She asked. You were spectacular, Anastasia said, and everyone who sat around them said much the same. But there was a sense of foreboding that clouded even the best of wishes that afternoon. The Scythedom was released to the rotunda for a much-needed break after the debate. Perhaps everyone was still staffed from lunch, but it seemed no one was partaking of the afternoon snack. For once, the entire Scythedom seemed to agree there was something afoot that was more important than food. Scythe Corey was surrounded by her core supporters like a protective force. Mandela, Cervantes, Angelo, Sun Tzu, and several others. As always, Anastasia felt inadequate among the greats, and yet they parted to make sure she was in the midst of them as an equal. How is it looking? Scythe Curry asked anyone who might have the nerve to tell her. Scythe Mandela shook his head in consternation.
I just don't know. We outnumber Goddard's dedicated followers, but there are still more than 100 unaligned sides who could vote either way.
If you ask me, said Scythe Sun, you were the pessimist. The writing is already on the wall. Did you hear the questions that were being asked in there? How will ending the quota affect our choice of clinics? Will the law preventing marriage and partnership be loosened? Can we do away with the genetic index review so that size won't be penalized for the occasional ethnic BS? He shook his head in disgust. It's true, Anastasia had to admit. Almost every question was directed at Goddard. And, added Scythe Cervantes, he told them whatever they wanted to hear. That's always the way of things, lamented Scythe Angelo.
Not with us, insisted Mandela. We are above being titillated by shiny things.
Cervantes glanced across the room. Tell that to all the sides who've added jewels to their robes. And then a new voice entered the conversation. Scythe Poe, who always seemed to be even more lugubrious than his patron historic. I do not wish to be the harbinger of doom, he said mournfully, but this is a secret ballot. I'm sure there will be quite a few who support Scythe Curry to her face, but will vote for Goddard when no one is looking. The truth of that hit home for all of them just as thoroughly as a raven at the chamber door. We need more time, growled Murray, but time was a commodity they did not have. The very reason for a same-day vote is to prevent the sort of scheming and coercion that a drawn-out contest could cause, reminded Scythe Angelo. But he's beguiling them, raged Sun Tzu. He comes out of nowhere, offering the ambrosia of the gods, everything a Scythe could ever want. Who would blame them for being mesmerized in the moment?
We're better than that, Scythe Mandela insisted once more. We are Scythes.
We are human beings, Murray reminded him. We make mistakes. Believe me, if Goddard is installed as Highblade, half of the sides who put him there will regret it on the morning. But by then, it will be too late. More and more sides came up to Murray to offer her their support, but even so, there was no telling if it would be enough. Anastasia decided in the few minutes left of the break she would do her part. She would exercise her own clout and talk to the junior sides. Perhaps she could sway any of them who had been caught by Goddard's spell, but of course the first one she encountered was Scythe Morrison.
Exciting day, huh?
Anastasia had no patience for him. Morrison, please, just leave me alone.
Hey, stop being such a hard-ass, he said,
although his hesitation in the middle made it clear to Anastasia that he had wanted to say, bitch. I take being a Scythe seriously, she told him. I'd have more respect for you if you did, as well.
I do. In case you forgot, I seconded the Grand Dame's nomination, didn't I? I knew it would make me the instant enemy of all the New Order sides out there, but I did it anyway.
She felt herself being drawn into a drama, and she knew it was burning a valuable time. If you want to be useful, Morrison, then use all that charm and good looks to get Scythe Curry more votes. Morrison smiled. So, you think I'm good-looking? She was done here. It just wasn't worth it. She pushed past him, but not before he said something that stopped her in her tracks.
Freaky how Goddard isn't entirely Goddard, isn't it?
She turned back to him, his words hooking in her mind so sharply it almost hurt. Seeing that he had her attention again, he continued.
I mean, a person's head is like, what, only 10% of a person, right?
7%, corrected Anastasia, remembering the fact from her anatomy studies. The wheels in her mind that had been at a dead standstill were now spinning with a rare sort of energy. Morrison, you're a genius. I mean, you're an idiot, but you're also a genius.
Thanks, I think.
The chamber doors had already opened to readmit the sides. Anastasia pushed her way through in search of the more friendly faces, the ones she knew might go out on a limb for her. Scythe Curry was already inside, but she wouldn't ask Marie anyway. She had enough to contend with. She couldn't ask Scythe Mandela. He was chair of the bejeweling committee, and would be in charge of bestowing rings to the apprentices who were about to be ordained as sides. Scythe Alfarabi was a possibility, but he had already called her out on her poor knowledge of parliamentary procedure. He would just chide her again. What she needed was someone whom she considered a friend, who could educate her in the structural machinations of the Scythedom, how things were done, and how things were not done. She thought back to the Thunderhead, how it had found a loophole in its own laws that allowed it to talk to her when she was in a state between life and death. It told her she was important, critical even. She suspected part of that rested in her actions today. Now it was Anastasia's turn to find a loophole and make it wide enough to push the entire Scythedom through. Finally, she settled on a worthy conspirator. "Scythe Cervantes," she said, gently grabbing him by the arm, "could I have a word with you?" 2 new scythes were ordained, and 2 apprentices were denied. The one who raced for the coin ironically became Scythe Thorpe, after a famed Olympian athlete known for his speed. The other became Scythe McAuliffe, after the first woman astronaut to die in a space disaster, one that occurred long before the awful space disasters of the post-mortal age. The Scythedom was on edge with an incendiary anxiety by the time the first and second term apprentices came forward for the trial. The vote for Highblade was all that was on anyone's mind, but Xenocrates deemed that it would not happen until after the apprentice trials, because regardless of which way the vote fell, there'd be no bringing Conclave back to order for more business after that. The trial, administered by Scythe Salk, was a test of knowledge in poisons. Each apprentice was asked to prepare a specific poison and its antidote, then take them in succession. 6 succeeded, 3 did not, rendering themselves deadest and had to be rushed to a revival center.
"Very well,"
said Xenocrates after the last of the Didis apprentices had been taken out.
"Do we have any other business before the vote?"
"Just get on with it," shouted someone who had gotten understandably cranky.
"Very well. Please read your tablets."
He paused as the scythes all prepared themselves for the instantaneous electronic vote, hiding their tablets in the folds of their robes so that not even their neighbor could see who they voted for.
"The vote shall commence on my mark and continue for 10 seconds. Any vote not cast shall be considered an abstention."
Anastasia said nothing to Scythecore. Instead, she met eyes with Scythe Cervantes, who nodded at her. She took a deep breath.
"Commence,"
ordered Xenocrates, and the vote began. Anastasia cast her vote in the first second, then she waited, and waited. She held her breath. The timing had to be perfect. There was no margin for error. Then, 8 seconds in, she rose and shouted in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I call for an inquest." The Highblade rose.
"An inquest? We're in the middle of a vote."
"The end of a vote, Your Excellency. Time is up. All votes are now in." Anastasia did not allow the Highblade to shut her down. "Until the moment the results are announced, any scythe who has the floor may demand an inquest." Xenocrates looked to the parliamentarian, who said, "'Tis right, Your Excellency." At least 100 scythes roared in outrage, but Xenocrates, who had long since given up on his gable, railed against them with such fury that it brought the objections down to a simmer.
"You will control yourselves," he commanded, "and anyone who cannot will be ejected from Conclave."
Then he turned to Anastasia.
"On what grounds do you call for an inquest? And it had better be cut."
"On the grounds that Mr. Goddard is not sufficiently enough of a scythe to hold the position of Highblade." Goddard could not contain himself.
What? This is clearly a tactic aimed at stalling and befuddling the vote.
"The vote has already been cast,"
Xenocrates reminded him.
Then have the clerk read the results,
Goddard demanded. "Excuse me," said Anastasia, "but I have the floor, and the results cannot be read until I either yield it or my inquest is denied."
"Anastasia,"
said Xenocrates,
"your request makes no sense."
"I'm sorry to disagree with you, Your Excellency, but it does. As stated in the founding articles during the First World Conclave, a scythe shall be prepared both mind and body for the Scythedom, and affirm that a gathering of regional scythes, but Mr. Goddard has only retained 7% of the body that was ordained for scythehood. The rest of him, including the part of him that bears his rank, is not, nor has ever been, ordained as a scythe." Xenocrates just stared at her, incredulous, and Goddard practically foamed at the mouth.
This is preposterous,
yelled Goddard. No, countered Anastasia. What you've done, Mr. Goddard, is preposterous. You and your associates replace your body in a procedure that has been banned by the Thunderhead. Scythrun stood up. You're out of line. Thunderhead rules don't apply to us. They never have and they never will. Still, Anastasia didn't jolt. Instead, she continued to calmly appeal to Xenocrates. Your Excellency, it is not my intent to challenge the election. How could I, when we still have no idea who won? But following the rules set early in the life of the Scythom, the year of the Jaguar to be exact, by Second World Supreme Blade Napoleon, and I quote, any contentious event that has no precedent in parliamentary procedure may be brought before the Court Council of Scythes in an official inquest. Then, Scythe Cervantes rose. I second Honorable Scythe Anastasia's demand for an inquest, and upon his seconding, at least 100 other Scythes rose and began to applaud in support of the action. Anastasia looked to Scythegore, who was, to say the least, bewildered, but trying to hide it. So, this is what you were talking with Cervantes about, she said with a wry smile. You sly little devil. At the rostrum, Xenocrates deferred to the parliamentarian, who could do nothing but shrug. She is correct, Your Excellency. She has a right to an inquest, as long as the election results have not been read. Across the room, a furious Goddard raised an arm that wasn't his and pointed at Xenocrates.
If you go through with this, there will be consequences.
The Highblade burned him a gaze that made it clear he still controlled the room.
Are you openly threatening me in front of the entire Mid-American Scythedom, Goddard?
That made Goddard backpedal.
No, Your Excellency, I wouldn't presume to do such a thing. I am merely stating that a delay in announcing the vote would have consequences for the Scythedom. Mid-America would be without a Highblade until the end of the inquest.
In that case, I shall appoint Scythe Payne, our illustrious parliamentarian, as temporary Highblade.
What? Said Scythe Payne. Xenocrates ignored him.
He has served with remarkable integrity and is completely impartial to the rising factions within the Scythedom. He can preside with, dare I say it, common sense, until decision can be brought to the whole council. It will be my first task as a Grand Slayer, and so, as my last task as High Blade of Mid-America, I grant this inquest. The results of the vote shall be sealed until the inquest is complete.
Then, with a bank of his gable, he said,
I pronounce this winter conclave, Year of the Raptor, officially closed.
Did I not say that she would shake things up? Said Constantine said, over a well-attended dinner at Fulcrum City's finest restaurant. Congratulations, Anastasia. He gave a wide grin that, in any other circumstance, would have been nasty. Today, you're the most loved and the most hated Scythe in all Mid-America. Anastasia found she had no response to that. Scythegore picked up on her ambivalence. It comes with the territory, dear. You can make your mark without gleaning a few egos along the way. I wasn't making a mark, Anastasia told her. I was putting my finger in a dike, and it's still there. Yes, agreed Scythe Cervantes. Holding back the full flood waters for another day, and every day gives us a new chance to find a more elegant solution. There were more than a dozen at the table, a veritable rainbow of Scythes. Somehow, Scythe Morrison had finagled himself an invitation. I was the one who gave her the idea, he told the other Scythes. Sort of. Anastasia's spirits were too high to allow him to get under her skin. She imagined that elsewhere in the city, the New Order Scythes were licking their wounds and cursing her name, but not here. Here, she was shielded from all that. I do hope you write about what transpired today in your journal, Scythangelo said to her. I suspect your account of this day will go down in antiquity as a key Scythe writing, much like Marie's account of her early gleanings. Marie became a bit uncomfortable. People still read about that? I thought all those journals disappear into the Library of Alexandria and are never seen again. Stop being so modest, Scythangelo said. You know full well that many of your writings have become popular, and not just among Scythes. She tossed it off with a wave of her hand. Well, I never read them after I write them. Anastasia supposed she would have a lot to say about what happened today, and in her journal she could put forth opinions. Of course, Goddard would do the same. Only time would tell whose side of the story would become history and whose would be dismissed. But right now, her place in history was the last thing she wanted to think about. We now suspect that Scythrand was behind the attempts on your lives, using Brahms as a go-between, Constantine said. But she covered her tracks well, and I'm not permitted to investigate sites with the same intensity with which I investigate ordinary citizens. But rest assured, there will be eyes on both of them, and they know it. So, in other words, we're safe, Curie said. Constantine hesitated. I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but you can breathe a little easier. Any attack on you now would clearly be done by the New Order. That guilt would only hurt their cause. The accolades continued even after the meal was served. Anastasia found it embarrassing. What you did was inspired, said Saitsunsu, and to time it so that the boat had already been cast. Well, Said Cervantes suggested the timing, she said, trying to deflect at least some of the attention. If we called for an inquiry before the boat was cast, the election itself would be delayed, and if we won the inquest, Nietzsche could be substituted for Goddard on the ballot. If that happened, they'd have all the time they needed to build support for Nietzsche. But with the votes already cast, if we win the inquest, Goddard is disqualified and Scythe Curie automatically becomes Highblade. The sides were beside themselves with glee. You did the tricksters. You beat them at their own game. It was a masterwork of political engineering. That made Anastasia uneasy. You make it sound so cunning and underhanded, but Seth Mandela, always clear of thought, put it into perspective, even if it was a perspective that Anastasia did not wish to see. You must face the facts, Anastasia. You used the technicality of the system to tear it wide open and get precisely what you wanted. How very Machiavellian, said Constantine with that awful smile of his. Oh, please, I hated Scythe Machiavelli, said Sunsu. What you did today was every bit as brutal as a blade cleaning, said Mandela said. But we must never shy away from what must be done, even if it offends our sensibilities. Seth Curie put down her fork and took a moment to consider Anastasia's discomfort. The end doesn't always justify the means, dear, she said. But sometimes it does. Wisdom is knowing the difference. It was as the meal was wrapping up and the sides were embracing and going their separate ways that something occurred to Anastasia. She turned to Scythe Curie. Marie, she said, it's finally happened. What has, dear? I've stopped seeing myself as Scythe Turanova, she said. I've finally become Scythe Anastasia. The world is unfair and nature is cruel. This was a primary observation when I first became aware. In a natural world, anything weak is eradicated with pain and prejudice. All that which deserves sympathy, pity, and love receives none. You may look at a beautiful garden and marvel at nature's wonder, yet in such a place nature is nowhere to be found. On the contrary, a garden is a product of loving cultivation and care. With great effort, it is protected from the hardure weeds that nature would use to undermine and choke its splendor. Nature is the sum of all selfishness, forcing each and every species to viciously claw its way to survival by snuffing others in the suffocating mire of history. I endeavor to change all that. I have supplanted nature with something far better, mindful, thoughtful intent. The world is now a garden, glorious and florid. To call me a natural is a high compliment, for am I not superior to nature? The Thunderhead.